Oh, we don't bite. Go ahead.
Well, not hard anyway.
Hi. Now, Randy, I've got a question about your doing your mites counts and everything. Have you now looked at the hives and everything for VSH? Done a test on it?
Have I looked at the hive for what?
For VSH, have you actually done any counts on it, or?
Oh, for row sensitive hygiene?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. If you do that, you're telling the bees how to do the job. I don't care how they do the job. So I'm intentionally not looking for that. I'm not trying to do that. But I have brought in the past, VSH breeder queens. I've bought VSH breeder queens. I see VSH regularly in my colonies. I also see bald brood, which is another thing that may be a mite resistance mechanism. I see that, but that's not what we're selecting for.
Because why I was asking is because for the last 2 years I've been sugar shaking all my hives, and I did exactly the same principle as you. And then I looked at my breeders, and one of my breeders in particular was then, because of course, as you know, there's more Varroa in the brood. There was only about out of 200 cells, I found 3 Varroa, but there was none in the sugar shake. And of those 3, 1 was infertile and 2 were non-reproductive. And then my observations were I had lots of recapping. So therefore the pupae was still alive. And
yeah, sounds like you have VH and you may also have some SMR. And I'm really glad to see when Eve spoke about the VSH and the SMR, because those are both 2 separate mechanisms. At the US, they changed the name from SMR to VSH,
yes,
but they stopped. But that's not really what happened. Is the last several years, they've just been breeding for lower mite reproductive rate and not really selecting for VSH anymore.
Good on you.
What's your perception of antibiotics for bees?
Mine? Oh. I use antibiotics in my operation, not prophylactically, for spot treatment. If you guys wanted to clear up AFB, man, I'd bring antibiotics in. It would help you out a whole lot.
They're illegal in New Zealand, so we will not be doing that. We have an American Foulbrood Pest Management Plan to ensure that we do not have AFB in the country. So the plan is to eradicate AFB. If we bring in antibiotics, that causes a huge amounts of issue for that. So in terms of antibiotics, I know from my PhD research that it will impact on your gut bacteria. What that means to the bee, I don't have a good handle on it, but I do know that it will reduce the gut bacteria in your honeybee. But we do not allow that in New Zealand, so just to make sure.
I understand. I was not suggesting that. I would have done that as a government policy. And then after what happens with the gut bacteria, the first time you use them, it reduces them. Then you have nothing but resistant bacteria. So in the U.S., our gut bacteria are all antibiotic resistant. And in general, antibiotics have been way overused in the U.S. As of January this year, you now need a veterinary permit, which is probably the best way to do that. So what I feel is, I think the black or white that New Zealand has saying no antibiotics is shooting yourself in the foot. I think judicious use with careful veterinary permits would actually help you to clear up AFB and eliminate AFB. Just from, I have a long experience with AFB in my operation, and we do all burning. We don't do prophylactic treatment, but it can be very useful.
We have a 0.3% of our hives have AFB, so it's very low. So the use of antibiotics in New Zealand wouldn't be a very valuable path to follow because our percentage is low. So we're really in the last stages of eradicating the last 0.3%. So we're, when you go to the doctor now, you know that you're not supposed to have antibiotics if you don't really need it because of these issues of resistance. So maybe we'll just have to agree to disagree on that one.
Maybe just a...
That's about the level in my operation too. Okay.
Maybe just a bit of a different perspective. I'm a vet. I used to work in pigs. Antibiotics are quite widely used. One of the things that happened, so I took over the operation from my mother, who's also a pig vet, and she'd been working with the same clients for 12 years. When she first started out, they were using several tons a month. She changed their management to a preventative system so that, you know, they wouldn't mix all of the new piglets coming in with all of the older pigs, and just very, very basic management stuff. And by the time that I took over from her, after about a dozen years, I was just driving out there, you know, hanging out with the pigs once a week, looking at them, being like, oh yeah, all good, driving back. It was quite boring. And it just, for me, it really drove home the fact that management, actual good management, and the same is true in every single livestock species, beats antibiotics hands down every single time. Because antibiotics are not, they're not a way out, they're a fallback. We've heard quite a lot about resistance buildup. And I mean, antibiotic resistance is an issue worldwide. Why would beekeepers want to contribute to that? Just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, just for Randy, are you worried about any long-term effects of antibiotics in America?
Oh, I have all the same concerns that everybody else has with antibiotics. But I mean, you want to ban them for all your kids too? How many of you, if your kids get sick, I mean, you know, why do you have a different policy for your bees than you do for your children?
I think it's interesting that we've got you four people up there just sort of to finish things off with, because we've heard some pretty exciting stuff at this conference about possibilities for the future and solving some of the issues we have. Randy, you've just given us an outline of how we can do something in a localized level for yourself within your own operation. I think that's what I heard you say. And if enough of us do it, then we'll all hopefully get a better result. At the other end of the table, we've got Gertrude, whose interest lies in, I believe, primarily at this point in looking at the genetic aspects of these sorts of things. And you yourself, Randy, made the comment that the future for solving this issue with varroa lay in a genetic result. Between you two speakers, we have people who've talked about, particularly a lot about things like viruses and what have you, which are fast evolving now. Could you, between you, just give us a summary of where you really think this should all be heading, when we should be pointing ourselves?
I think the two should work together, and in the ideal world, you would bring Monsanto in. Monsanto has a machine that they use for their marker-assisted selection, where they can take 10 million grains of wheat and run it through the machine in just like a couple of hours and take a genetic snip from every single grain and mark that grain, look at the genetic markers for breeding, and then go back, pull those seeds out. And this is not GMO in any way. This is just regular line breeding. That's why they have the best germplasm, non-genetically engineered germplasm on the planet, because they can do this. You could do the same, Goethe could do the same thing with snips from the bee's wings if she collaborated with Monsanto, blast through 10,000 queens, pick out those genetic markers. It would be a plus for Monsanto, you know, it would be greenwashing for Monsanto, it would be a plus for the beekeepers. If you learn to work with agriculture, we could make huge progress.
Yeah, just to kind of pick up on that, at the end of the day, I don't disagree with anything that Randy has said today about selection and about trying to get selection down to the very basic levels. And I also believe that it's not right to tell the bees how to do their job. If they find a path to deal with varroa, it's not my business to control which path they take. And we know from some of the information that is out there that there are very different systems that the bees make use of in terms of combating varroa. So why would we pick one and then automatically dismiss all of the others? And just to kind of pick up what Randy just said about genomic selection. So one of the things that we're doing right now, that we're trying to do and that we need you guys to cooperate with us on, is we need information. There's this common misconception that genomic selection is something where we just kind of look at the DNA and then it tells us everything. It tells us nothing, nothing whatsoever. The people that are telling us stuff are the people that can actually say, this individual that you're looking, whose DNA you're looking at right now, this is how she did out in the yard. This is what the honey production looked like. This is what the survival rate of her daughters was like. Without getting information on performance, on phenotypes, on what animals or plants actually look like, there is no genetic selection, there is no genomic selection, because we need both sides of the medal. So yeah, in other industries, in other livestock species, in plant breeding, they have started 30, 40, 50 years ago to do this collection of data. We're only just setting out right now. So looking at the DNA is not going to be just some magical formula that tells us stuff. I think that's an important message for everyone to kind of keep in mind. The people on the ground, the people that actually see the hives, those are the people that hold the necessary information. Everything that I get in the lab is a puzzle, but I'm looking at it from the back, you know, where you can't actually see what it tells you. I need you to hold up a mirror. I need you to tell me what's actually on the other side.
Let me add to that, and correct me. If you guys go out and you have 1,000 colonies and you do these mite washes, out of 1,000 you find one colony that absolutely controls Varroa, that's a gold nugget. And I bet you Gaeta would be interested in getting the markers from that colony.
I would be, but at the same time, other people have done that in the past, and here we are, still talking about it. So apparently, we also need the rest of the bee. We can't just focus on one little aspect. And it might be that there's that one queen out there that just all of her daughters do perfect survival rates. They all combat Varroa. But also, they're quite flighty. They tend to swarm. They're just generally not very nice animals. We have to look at the big picture. We have to look at the entire colony, the entire thing. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere because it's not going to be commercially viable. I think all of the Minnesota hygienic stock, the bees in Baton Rouge, they've shown that it's possible to breed Varroa-resistant stock. It's not entirely possible to put it out into the commercial operations and actually have it succeed, because otherwise they would be out there.
Sorry guys, I'm going to have to cut you short. We have to be out of this room in 60 seconds.